Welcome back. You're still watching The Morning Breeze on NBS Television on this third day of January. The air is still fresh. And this morning, our focus will be on the national agenda. What should be informing the national discourse as we roll out the year? There have been several speeches, several calls for dialogue, several calls for peace, several calls for calm. The president, at the beginning of the year, also some of the areas where he feels there's need for more concentration, for more focus, while Katabazi also made his New Year address yesterday, where, among other things, he expressed interest to hold dialogue for as long as it's principled. He also rallied people again on defiance, among other issues. We'll be breaking down all these issues and also look at the current state of affairs in the country, see where the holes could be that can be plugged. I'm joined this morning by the ambassador, Uganda's ambassador to China, Ambassador Henry Mayega, alongside Mr. Patrick Katabazi Chichoncho, a member of civil society and a lawyer who also doubles as a political analyst. Gentlemen, Happy New Year. Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, the year is still fresh.
Yes.
But I believe there are some issues that could have spilled over 2016. Probably we should first give some digest on these issues that you really feel remained as unanswered questions. I'll begin with you.
Yes. On the political front, we still have the Kasese question, which is very outstanding. The king for the people in Kasese is still in jail. That one will not comment so much about it because it's a matter that is before court. But generally, the whole issue surrounding stability in that region is still outstanding. In my view, it has not yet been resolved.
Is it political or legal?
Yes, it has both a legal and a political element. It is legal because the matter right now is before court, especially for those who have been charged. But also political because the kind of uprising that we see in that region emanates from a long-standing challenge of so many problems that have been not solved for a long period of time. Then the second one that I see that is very outstanding is the worsening economic situation. Wherever you go, whoever you talk to, everyone, including myself, is complaining about lack of money, the limited flow of money in the economy. You have traders who supplied goods and services to South Sudan who have not been paid. You have a lot of people, so many of whom are contractors to government, who have not been paid. And once government defaults or delays to pay people, it means that since the government is the biggest, in my view, biggest contractor, if it does not pay people and on time, there is the way it affects the flow of money in the economy. And in my view, that is still very outstanding.
Basically, those are the two. Ambassador Mayega, are there some unresolved questions that you feel could also endure in 2017?
Well, first of all, Happy New Year to the country because 365 days is a very long period of time and there are quite a number of things that happen. One of them is what my colleague has mentioned, of the kinds of things that happened in the Kasese. There was fighting, of course, we can't say so much about. The issues to do with how the management of the process, which is before court, is going to be managed. Because anything before court, of course, you can't comment so much. But of course, that is a problem, and it's a problem that predates the administration of President Yoweri Museveni, because you remember two individuals, one from Bundibujo and another from Kasese, walked out of the Ruchiko of Toro Kingdom, you remember the 60s, and then they went about forming whatever rebellion they did in the mountains, and of course that burst the conflict that has been there, first of all during, of course, the colonial times, and then during the first Obote administration, and during the Amin administration, during the Obote administration, and of course, of recent, the Yoweri Museveni administration. So this is something that has really stretched for a very long period of time. And I don't want to really apportion blame as to who has so forth. That is a matter which is before court, but I wanted to give that historic background. So it's a problem, it's a sticking point, which has been with us for a very long time, probably for decades. That is number one. Of course, I want to agree that there are issues as far as the economy is concerned. Recently, I was reading about the sugar prices skyrocketing through the roof because of a few things. But I hope that the government administration of Yoweri Museveni, the Minister of Trade, is going to sort those matters out. Plus quite a couple of other things, of course, shortage of money. Me, I live outside Uganda, and I know that the economic problems are not an exclusive should I say problem of Uganda, because even where I live as a diplomat, there are issues to do with the cash. People are not finding enough cash in order to. But then what surprises me in the country, in my country, in Uganda, is that even if we say that there are problems to do with cash flow in the economy, you see construction buildings, you see people buying new cars, you see all sorts of things going on. So I begin to say that is it a problem of unequal distribution of income? Is it a problem of the usual talk that yes, there is no money? Because even those who seem to be putting up actually buildings and buying cars and all sorts of things in terms of capital development, they still complain about lack of money. So we need really to study this problem of economics and find what exactly is happening. So, but there are of course issues, I want to admit. It's a global problem. It's not only here, all over the place, including where I live. Economics, in my view, is an international challenge. But I think we
what issues should kickstart the year?
In my view, number one is the maintenance of peace in this country, because that will allow us to fix the economy, that will allow us to do all sorts of things. Because if we lack peace and stability in Uganda, then there will be issues. The economy definitely will not function properly. So for me, peace is number one. Number two.
Are there any missing links in peace in the pursuit of peace?
Of course, broadly happening in the country at the moment. There is really peace in the country, apart from what we've mentioned in Kasese. Just one small part of the country where people took it upon themselves to think that they can do all manner of things against the state. So, but I want to comment.
I think I would also be interested
and
in
I want also
what you
probably to expand. I know which direction you're trying to take. I want to expand the argument about peace, because I know you're going to say, or my colleague is going to say, who is in the studio, that actually beyond the firing of bullets, beyond all sorts of things, there are other things that determine as to whether you have the peace or you don't. For instance, if somebody have finances in the pockets, they will not be in a position to pay the school fees. They will not be in a position to probably buy food rations for their families and so on and so forth. So I want to extrapolate that argument, if you want, that peace is a broad concept that includes either the firing of bullets or not firing them, including even the economics we've been talking about. So peace is a broad concept, but broadly speaking, I think we are relatively okay compared to other countries in the region. You don't want to stay in some of the countries. I don't want to mention them, given my nature of duty job that I do.
Probably would start with
the countries in the region that actually lack this stability. Yeah, Uganda is doing much better than most of them.
So top priority should be peace.
Yeah, in my view.
How about you, Patrick? What do you think should kickstart the national discourse this year?
For me, I want to look at peace as an outcome. But the input should be dialogue, like we started to open this show. And here we are talking about a dialogue that is looking at all political forces with a view of harnessing unity. And of course, you know, once you have unity, when you have all Ugandans working together, one of the ultimate goals you achieve is certainly peace. So I want to see a dialogue of all political actors in place. That's number one. Number two.
Informed by?
Yes, of course. Like, for instance, we have had so many pronouncements about this, like you did indicate at the opening of this show. So we have the president, in my view, who has said on more than one occasion that is open to dialogue. You then also have different political actors, including Dr. Kano Chiza Besigye, saying that is also open to. But I think in my own view, what has been the problem is what kind of structure are we going to have? What kind of form are we going to have? And you remember very well the last time we were here with Honorable Sechtoreko, that was a subject that we were discussing. And the question of the day was, should it be a dialogue about these two political, so to say? Can't it be a dialogue of Ugandans? Where, for instance, people are talking politics, we are talking the economy, we are talking social services, so that at the end of the day, once we know that we are done with this kind of process, then we are very sure that each and every aspect of has been tackled. And I still stand by that position. So for me...
Yeah, but there should be always compelling reasons for people to dialogue. Where is the problem?
Yes, the problem is we have an election up to now that is still contested. Yes, some people, yes, the winner was declared and that is it all. But I can assure you is that there are a good number of Ugandans. By the way, even if the election was free and fair and the right winner was elected, but you still have so many other millions of Ugandans who voted the opposite direction. So
there is automatically a winner and a loser.
Yes, but then how do we ensure that the voices of those who voted in the opposition, so to say, if we are to use that analogy, how can we ensure that that voice is well inculcated in our processes? And in my view, if we don't seem to move towards that direction, then we shall keep on having this we see. People on the street, people demonstrating, people frustrating this and that, and at the end of the day, we cannot have a very constructive engagement. Is
there any sense of a political impasse that you talk about at the moment? Or these are just mere altercations that have been silenced?
To be honest with you, when I see somebody who, according to the Electoral Commission, came second in court over a treason case, a treason case in my view is really a political case, so to say, that is a pointer that there is impasse already. Because this gentleman is believed to have declared himself the validly elected president. Don't ask me so much about the politics behind that. But at least from that angle to what we normally see on the street, what this group says, what this other group says, in my view, there is a contention. And it can only be resolved when the people come together to talk. And in any case, I mean, if there was no impasse, why would Dr. Besigye make a declaration that, you know what, me, I'm ready to dialogue? Why would he say that?
Ambassador Mayega, do you feel any political in the country?
You know, competitive politics, and I believe that we have a democracy in this country, brings about a contestation. There's no doubt about it. That's why you have one side, which is called the winner, and the other side, which is the loser. But what we need to understand is the African situation, because in my view, the African is really dotted with all sorts of these kinds of things where an election happens and then somebody complains about foul, that the election didn't go his way because there was rigging and so on. So we are used to this kind of thing, including in this very country.
So is Besigye and group merely crying foul?
I wouldn't want really to start with Besigye, because talking about dialogue, yes, fine. His name definitely is going to come in. But dialogue, in my view, is okay. It's something that is ongoing, including in this very studio, because we are now dialoguing about what direction this country should take. That is okay.
Dialogue is premised on a crisis.
Now, having said that, I don't want to agree with, because I've just been reading what at his press conference, that kind of giving an impression that there is actually a crisis in this country. I don't see it. I need probably special spectacles in order to see that crisis which is in this country, because we went for this election, he went for this election.
You live abroad.
Other people went for this election. Yes, I live abroad, but every 2 months I come back because it is here. It's
probably you're detached from the reality.
And I remember that even when the election was about to happen, I was in this country and I saw what was going on. And we have a body called the Electoral Commission, which declares the results. The election body declared that President Yoweri Museveni was the winner. They went to court, and this time, of course, it wasn't Kizza Besigye because he had done it before many times. It was actually Katabazi who went to court. And what did the Supreme Court say? The Supreme Court was very clear. It said, yes, in spite of the fact that there were other small problems. I won't call them small. Others will call them big. But there were, according to the Supreme Court, issues to do with that election. But overall, the Supreme Court actually upheld the results of those elections. And I thought that would really conclude so that people can go back to their, should I say, political homesteads, and they reorganize for the subsequent election in 2021. But if people are still complaining about what went through the Electoral Commission and what went through the Supreme Court, I think they're wasting time, because at hand, of course, we also have the LSC. And I would have really wanted to see that those who are opposed to the current administration should go to the ground and mobilize people so that they can have that opportunity of having a huge structure at the village level, at the district level, and so on and so forth. So,
why the election mood has continued to hover over the country, to the fact that elections ended in Feb 18?
Where I live, I don't see that kind of mood. I find it in this studio that there is actually a mood that probably assumes that there was a problem in as far as that election is concerned, because a majority of the people in the country, first of all, voted for President Yoweri Museveni. A majority of the people still don't agree with Kizza Besigye about science. And this is extrapolated even across the Uganda borders, because I attended the UNA convention this last year, where many, including those from the opposition, actually disagreed with Kizza Besigye over the defiance thing. And that's why when Kizza Besigye normally comes out to go to the streets and so on and so forth, I wish that actually can come out to the streets with his family. You don't expect my son, who is in Budo, to join that kind of defiance campaign on the studio. I mean on the streets, unless Kizza Besigye brings his family to the streets. But that is just by the way. So the defiance campaign, in my view, is a misplaced idea. What people should be doing, what Kizza Besigye should be doing, what the opposition should be doing, is to make sure that they go to the grassroots and make sure that they mobilize as much support as possible, which they are not doing, because much of the actual things that they are doing is a concentration in the towns and cities and so on. So in my view, they are not doing the politically correct thing in order to increase the political support.
Do you dismiss the argument that actually the country is still trapped in the election mode?
Well, probably that is something that is in Kizza Besigye's head or somebody's head. Because for me, as far as I'm concerned, I don't see it. It's not in my head. My people in my house absolutely know that the election is over. And the majority of the people, I believe, in this country
is normalcy prevailing in Uganda?
Are not in election mode. The only election mode, probably, which is in people's minds at the moment, at least as far as I can see, is the upcoming LOC elections.
You see, I think the respected ambassador really, like the name suggests, has been out of the country for quite some time. And there are certain things that, of course, that he reads about. But for the record, I wouldn't want to say that everything is okay. I would say we are a little bit stable, so to say. But look at the Supreme Court judgment that he's referring to. What did it recommend, for instance, on Electoral Commission? What has the executive done in respect to those recommendations? Didn't they talk about Electoral Commission by consensus? Weren't parties moving towards ensuring that they put in place an Electoral Commission that is reflective of the aspirations of all the political actors? What did we see happening? Won't that be a crisis if a Supreme Court has given direction or guidance and the contrary is done? Didn't they talk about so many other reforms within the electoral laws? Are we seeing any positive direction towards that end? An army of government invading a palace where so many people are dead, irrespective of, by the way, what the problem could have been, isn't that a pointer of a crisis? If a whole Ministry of Finance addresses the says we have an economic crisis, what other kind of crisis?
Does it stem from elections, you think?
Ordinarily, yes. Because when you have people who are not politically stable in terms of the actions that they take, then you know that our has very many players. Some of them are internal, others are external. So before all the players come to terms with the result of the election, a lot of things happen. I don't want to connect to these other things that we have been seeing in the media, World Bank polling here, left, right, and center, to be tagged elections. But I can assure you that where you have impasse that is going on in the country, a lot of things take place, and you will not be surprised if some of them are connected to elections. So back to the point, would it be fair to say that as a matter of fact, if I'm a political player, I should get my and put them on the street as a demonstration that as a matter of fact, I believe in the struggle? In any case, the ambassador has said that for him he's in wherever he is, and he normally comes back to check on his family. That tells you...
He's in the comfort zone.
Yes, I mean, that tells you that if you're a political actor, really, people should be assessed by the kind of activities that they promote, not necessarily saying that I don't see your children on the front line, why do you want other children to be there? In any case, in all these struggles, by the way, even if we are to use the current struggle where these people were in the bush, I was not. Our program was not yet born by that time. Did their families, when their families else are enjoying? We had in the media some people calling them that some were enjoying sausages while others were on the front line. So for me, let us look at the issues and analyze them. Like for instance, is there a need for a political dialogue? Yes or no? And if there is, what should be the key things to dialogue on? Is there a political question that we need to look at? Yes, there is.
What is this question?
The political question is...
Is it framed yet?
It is not yet framed in my view. Because here, if I read the temperature from the grassroots or from the ordinary person, people look at the contestation of Katabazi and Yoweri Museveni. Whereas at the moment, that seems to be like a sellable idea. But for me, in the long term, it is not. Because Uganda belongs to all of us. Me, I wouldn't care whoever the president would be if, for instance, we have free and fair, a level of ground where anyone else, including him or myself, can stand and be voted. So for me, that is a very, very key parameter. The second one is, do we have a free political space? If I'm organizing a rally, really, what chances are that police is not going to come and say this is an illegal assembly? And then, of course, the other people will come around and say, you know, you mobilize the grassroots. How do you mobilize the grassroots if you cannot have freedom to call a meeting?
What does it mean when the contest between President Museveni and Katabazi lingers on forever?
Yes.
What does it put?
Yeah, it means that our political stability is not sustainable. It means that for the ruling government, they only have this gentleman, the president. It also means that probably opposition, which will be an alternative, is also hanging on one man.
Is the country
so meaning we are stuck with the two guys. If that is the case, if you look at Besigye saying it's going nowhere, these other people they are saying, this is the best that we have. It means that we are stuck with two people. That's ultimately where it is going to be.
How noble or significant is the call for Katabazi for dialogue?
As I said before at the beginning of this conversation, he says that these discussions must be structured, there must be a mediator, and quite a couple of other things which he has said. But as far as I'm concerned, there is no crisis that requires a mediator in this country. It is not there. Because all political discussions, I think we have a fora in which these things can be discussed. One is IPOD, which brings together all political parties, irrespective of its infirmities. Of course, it has infirmities, I know, that's why you're jumping into your pens to write about it, but there is IPOD, as far as I'm concerned, which is supposed to bring all these parties together. The second one is Parliament, where all the parties, past their names, actually are represented. And that is another forum where these kinds of discussions can be held. And actually discussions are being held in that place. There are also district councils in that place, in our respective districts where discussions can take place. There are all sorts of things. I mean, there is even freedom. We'll come to these studios and talk. Now, I want to go back to what my friend is talking about.
Aren't you reducing
no,
the essence of dialogue?
You remember, Simon, at the beginning of this conversation, I said that there is absolutely no problem with having dialogue. That's what we are doing at the moment in this studio, unless we really want to tell ourselves that we're not dialoguing. But I wanted to respond to what my colleague said, because he's mentioning that people are being stopped from having discussions in the country. And I remember that shortly before elections, Mugisha Muntu went throughout the country trying to establish structures and so on. And he was not stopped by anybody. Mugisha Muntu of FDC, unless really probably we have
times he was arrested and stopped.
when you were giving your submission, I don't think, let's be civil so that I can finish my points. Otherwise, if we keep interjecting
Fine,
each other,
fine, go
we're,
ahead.
not, we're not going
Make your
to
point.
make a point in this studio. But the fact of the matter is, those who move according to the law, we must accept that there is a law that governs these meetings that we have. This country has got instability before, and we don't want to go down the drain again. And therefore, that's why there is a law. In Rwanda, we call it Kugira.
Why is government pushing more the law than consensus?
Well, then we become outlaws. If we don't believe in the law, we become outlaws. We become a failed state. For that matter, if we are not going to believe in laws, there must be laws. In the UK, where I stayed for some time, I remember at the point that they also have a law. In fact, theirs is even more elaborate than ours. Let people not come to these studios and tell you guns lies. Theirs is more elaborate. If somebody wants to have a conference, somebody wants to have a political discourse, somebody wants to have the kind of Kizza Besigye wants to have, you must inform either the municipal people 2 weeks in advance, and you must have stewards even to keep the order so that you don't walk into markets like Kizza Besigye and his goons were doing, trampling people's tomatoes. Goons. Yes, because they are trampling tomatoes in the markets. You remember?
I love your choice of words.
Absolutely,
yes.
Because they are trampling tomatoes. And you know those marketeers actually borrow money to have their small businesses. And this is where Kizza Besigye gets people from. Whenever they walked along Gaza Road, that's what they were doing. It's for a fact. You remember even a policeman was killed in Chikubo as a result of the walk to work. So let's not forget, be oblivious about these kinds of things. And that's why there must be a law, including the law recently, which put in place to govern or to make sure that there are guidelines for the NGO world where he is. Because wherever we live, including in China where you work, these laws are actually existent. They are there. So, but to go back to the point, Kizza Besigye is proposing a dialogue. Fine, that's okay. There should be a dialogue. I have no problem with it. I have no qualms about having dialogue in this country, which in my view actually is already ongoing. Unless we want to suggest that
what does this say about Besigye? What does this say about Besigye?
Well, I'm sure he's a political animal, and so he wants to probably remain politically relevant as much as possible.
Is he merely seeking
It is
relevance?
also, in a way, a usurpation of all the political space from the opposition. He's usurping it. The rest of the people in the opposition are actually sleeping, and he's usurping it. And there's a vacuum, so he's occupying it. And I don't want to blame him for that. Because if others have come here to sleep, so be it. So he's actually occupying the entire political space. And he has actually made that no any other person comes up in the opposition to bring up a big, credible contestation against the current administration.
So this is a stand to portray him as relevant.
Yeah. I mean, politics. I've been in politics before. And I'm still a political animal, and I know that if there is a vacuum, I must occupy it. Because
what do you make of this assertion that Besigye is merely seeking political relevance?
Well, I mean, okay, to one angle he's right, really, because at the end of the day, as a politician, you have to keep relevant. That is perfectly fine. But also important to note is that, in my view, in other countries, like Kenya, we are not Kenya, it's true, I admit, but let me give an example of Kenya. When there is something that is happening in the country, you'll see people from the opposition and the president on the same stage